Hey, welcome one, welcome all. Well, one may be all that's here. No, there's 7 people here, so we're rocking and rolling already. Welcome. It's another last second live stream of Aaron Live, which I haven't done in like 2 weeks, I don't think. Which, if you want proof that I'm working on Wraith of God, that's the proof, because I've been spending my time working as opposed to live streaming, which I miss doing, but that work's got to get done, man. You guys are waiting on the book, and I have to get it done. And the only way I can do that is by actually working on it. So anyway, let's see who's here. Sequential Treasures was first one in the door. You get absolutely nothing for that, but thanks for joining us. He's actually quite proud of it. He says, yeah, I beat leg kick in being the first here again. It's going to be a good day. Absolutely. Aaron Louviere is here. Thanks, Aaron, for joining us. Devil Flyer. Haven't seen Devil Flyer in a while. Thanks for joining us. Darth Josh, who resides here in Oregon, is here. Let's see. We got OCB Reactions. Hey, all. Hey, thanks for joining us. 7 is a lucky number. Aaron Lopresti. It is indeed. Bill Maxwell's here. 72 pages of goodness. Actually, it's going to be closer to 78 pages of goodness as it continues to grow. And here's the real, this is kind of a secret, so it's just between us. I rewrote I'm in the process of rewriting the last scene of the book and stretching it out a bit. And so I'm desperately trying to keep it at 80 pages or under. But it's not finished yet, so I don't have an exact page count. But when you add on the epilogue, which is mind-blowing, 3-page epilogue, plus the regular story, we're really going to be flirting with 80 pages. And so we shall see when that. I think maybe the reason I have not rewritten it fully at this point is because I'm afraid of how many pages it's going to be when I do. I mean, I know what I'm going to do with it. I just need to restructure it and add some stuff, and so I'm kind of sweating bullets on that. But I need to get that shored up so I know exactly how many pages the book is going to be. But everything is pretty much solidified up through page probably around 60, and then there's that actually probably farther than that, probably about page 65 or 66, and then it gets kind of how long do I want to stretch out that final scene. And I'm not just stretching it out to pad it. I've added some elements and things that I think make it stronger, but I'm not exactly sure what my page count is going to be on that. So I will know soon enough, though. Anyway, look at that. Darth Josh says, no, Aaron, I just got 2 of the Secret Wraith cards. Not 1, but 2. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, Darth. I was going to have those out, but, it's a last second live stream, so I'm ill-prepared as always. I always think I'm prepared, but then I always find out that I'm not. Okay, so what he's talking about is this card right here. Now, I got these back from the printer. See if I can get some better light on that. There we go. Now these are the cards that everybody that did pre-sign up, well, not pre-sign up, but pre-order sign up, get one of these for free. This was kind of like the reward for signing up early. But what I did was there was about almost 900 people that signed up early, and I went ahead and printed 1,000 of these. So I have 100 extras that I'm offering up for sale for $5 a piece for people that ordered from the campaign but didn't sign up early. So you have an opportunity to get one of these cards for just $5. And look, there's writing and stuff on the back, and it's printed on uncoated paper, so it kind of feels more like an old-fashioned 70s trading card, which I thought would be kind of fun. The other card that everybody gets that just automatically for backing the campaign at any level is the Esther trading card. Okay, now this is actually a coated stock card. It has a nice kind of matte finish to it. I don't like glossy. So it's a matte finish, and of course there's writing on the back and information about her. So those are the two cards. Let me show you, if I may. I'm working on the sticker set right now that everybody gets. That's the Garbage Man sticker. And they'll all be formatted like this with the circular image in here and then the title of whatever character it is. And there's going to be 6 of these that go into the sticker set. There are actually 2 separate tiers. The first, or pardon me, financial goals, stretch goals. The first one was the first 3 stickers, and the second stretch goal was the second 3. So we have this set of 6 that everybody's going to get this set of 6 stickers that are Lopresti-verse stickers. So there'll be this. There'll be a Wraith of God, which is a new image. David Williams is doing another one for me, but I don't know which one yet. So then there's Power Cubed, Garbage Man, Wraith of God, the Night Club, which makes its first appearance in the Garbage Man trade paperback, and what am I forgetting? Oh, Kit Carter, and then one of my other titles, which I quite frankly have not decided which one I'm going to do yet. And then there's also going to be a value stamp that features another new character that'll be in the book on the basically I'm doing one of the stretch goals was to add a kind of like a Stan's soapbox. If you remember those, the bullpen bulletin from the old Marvel comics used to have a page in there that would describe everything that was coming out in that month. And then you get like a little value stamp sticker that people, of course, cut out of the comics, which ruined the collectability of the comic. But I'm going to do something similar to that. So you're going to have all these write-ups of all these titles and what they're about. And some of them will be brand new to you. It'll be the first time you've ever heard of any of this stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, so I'm working on the sticker set to go along with all the other goodies you guys are going to be getting. Nice sweater, but I thought we were doing ugly sweaters. You want to know how old this sweater is? I think I had this when I was in high school. I'm not joking. I just don't buy much clothes, but in the wintertime, man, I layer up. So I get cold and I don't get warm again until like, June. So anyway, look at Bill Meachin's with me, man. He hates glossy. He's all for the matte, and that's me too. In fact, I'm going to do the Wraith of God, the graphic novel when it comes out in prints. I'm printing it, the cover stock on matte, or have a matte finish on it, not a high gloss varnish, because I just hate it. Well, I can't fit into all of them. The pants, not so much, but some of the sweaters and stuff. Okay, let me get rid of this. So let me give you a quick rundown of what I've been working on. I did a live stream of this. So if you haven't seen me, this was from the Sunday show. If you didn't catch that, Gabe was my guest, but we had a miscommunication, and so he came in really late. So I did a quick filler, which was I talked a little bit about coloring, and then worked on this Santa piece. And then Gabe showed up, so then I interviewed Gabe, and we talked about process and stuff. So that was kind of fun. Of course, I posted that on social media, and everybody's like, "Well, where's Santa with the Coke in his hand?" Well, I'm working on that right now. So there's another Santa. I love Christmas. I know it's about Jesus, but I like to do, what the heck just happened to my lighting? What just happened to my lighting? It's all creepy now. Let me see if I can... go back in. I'm spooky now. Anyway, well, maybe that. Oh, there it got better again. I don't know what the heck's going on. Okay, so that's what I've been working on, and on the live streams. But what have I been working on my drafting table, you may ask? Let's take a quick look, actually, shall we? Let's get rolling here. See, David B is a smart guy. Now, see, I went to film school, but I never paid attention to the technical classes. Like, these guys could load cameras and do all this lighting crap, and I was just like, all I was interested in was writing and directing. That was all I was interested in. And so thank you for the aperture. That makes total sense. So if I cover up, wrong arm. So if I cover up that bright spot, interesting. Okay. Am I still spooky? No. We'll pretend this is a Halloween stream. Okay. So I have been reluctant to show too much artwork from Wraith of God, right? Because I don't want to ruin it for you guys. But at the same time, I want you guys to know that I'm actually progressing on it. And so I've got to kind of pick and choose my spots. Now, of course, anybody that's actually signed up would have seen this, which is page number 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. Love that page. Okay, with the Wraith with the gun, or actually tackling the guy, turned out really well. So you guys have seen those pages, and actually page 5 is actually posted up there because I figured, DC and Marvel, whenever they do previews, they always show like the first 4 or 5 pages of the issue to get you guys interested. And so I thought, okay, I'll show that. But then I have to kind of pick and choose my spots because I obviously don't want, to ruin it for you guys by giving you spoilers. So what I've shown is pages that don't involve the Wraith, because most of the stuff the Wraith is in is sort of revelatory. There's a revelation, there's something about the plot or in the story that's important, and I don't want you to see it until you read it. So I keep showing pages that don't have the Wraith on them, which may make some people think is even in this book. I actually counted the first 23 pages. He's in 14 of the first 23 pages, which I think is a fairly decent ratio. So yeah, he's in it a lot. You're just not seeing those pages. I think there's some truth there. Well, Gremlins is a Christmas movie. So I got this discussion. In fact, The Professionals is Thursday night. I think I believe it's on Billy Tucci's channel. He's hosting. We're going to be discussing about favorite Christmas films. And we've already started an argument amongst ourselves about, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Is this a Christmas movie? Is that a Christmas movie? And it's like, for me, I'm going way off on a tangent here, but just for a moment. Die Hard is not a Christmas film because there's nothing about the theme of the film that has anything to do with Christmas. It just happens to take place at Christmas time in LA. Now, granted, the film does use Christmas music in some of its soundtrack. Okay. But my judgment is that, and I know this is, it's a hot topic. My judgment is that because thematically it has nothing to do with Christmas, then how could it be a Christmas movie? And I think Graham Nolan said, well, does that mean Krampus is a Christmas movie? And I said, well, of course Krampus is a Christmas movie. The whole movie is about Christmas. How can it not be a Christmas film? Christmas Vacation is a Christmas film. But it doesn't, that's not the, that is like, it just an excuse to get him to LA. And then the whole, I don't know, I don't see it as a Christmas film. But I do honor the argument that it is a Christmas film, even though I don't agree that it is, essentially. But I can see how people look at it that way. So I don't really debate it that much. I'm just giving you the reasons why I don't think it is. But I do think there are reasons why people would think that, but I don't think it is. Let's see. Okay, so anyway, enough of that. That will be discussed thoroughly Thursday night. So I encourage all you guys to join us on The Professionals. Okay, so let's switch cameras over here, which I actually do have set up, as shocking as that may sound. I did have that open and ready. Okay, so I showed you guys this. Well, actually, I showed it on Ethan's channel, um, which is a dialogue between the sheriff, who's a mysterious character. And there's a lot of mysterious characters in this small town that the Wraith goes to hunt down this werewolf. Now, this is Henry Hull. Now, I just went ahead and named him that because Henry Hull is the actor who played the werewolf in Werewolf of London. That was a Universal film, 1931, 32, somewhere in that neighborhood. And he's the English retired English monster hunter who's hiding out in Arizona and has the medallion that the werewolves want, and that the Wraith is trying to stop them from getting. So these are centralized figures in the plot, or central figures in the plot. But, you know, I felt like they were interesting enough to show you guys the progress. This is page 17. And, but not revealing enough to really kind of blow anything that I didn't already, talk about while promoting the book. So anyway, so let's take a look at another page that I don't think will ruin anything, but of course you can always turn away from the screen. First of all, I did, here's the layout that I did. This is page 23, which I'm working on right now. My goal at this point is to get through page 35 by the end of this month. That's, or pardon me, 30, is it 35 or 37? I was trying to get 15 done. Yeah, it'll be 37. Whether or not I'm going to get there because of Christmas, I don't know, but that's sort of the standard I've set for myself. So we'll see if I can hit that goal. But anyway, so I did my layout last night for page 23. And what we've got here is our Clint Eastwood sheriff. This old miner comes into town, asks him some questions about the stagecoach that came in the night before and who was on it. And the sheriff is, reluctant to give him any information. So the old miner whips out a nice silver coin there, which of course grabs the interest of our mysterious sheriff. And as the miner walks off, you can see that the sheriff's flipping the coin in the background. So basically he bought information from the sheriff, which tells us a little bit about the sheriff. We get information about him in this conversation that he has with Henry Hall, that he's not a great guy. Let's just put it that way. And his motivations are somewhat mysterious. But we certainly know that by this scene that he's a guy who can, he can be bought. And so that sets up this old miner character and gives us somewhat more information about this mysterious sheriff. And so when I go ahead and Devil Flyer jumps in here and says 1933. Thank you very much. Oh, Graham Stetson movies is questionable at best. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I mean, but it's that centers around Thanksgiving, right? And the whole point of the plot is Steve Martin trying to get home for Thanksgiving. I mean, again, that is central to the plot, which I don't see that being the case in Die Hard. But, like I said, I'm certainly open to that argument, though. That's an interesting concept right there. I hadn't really thought about that. See, the thing is using, here we go, we're off on this tangent again, but is using Christmas as a backdrop for a movie that has nothing to do with Christmas, make it a Christmas movie? I mean, that's really the question, right? Because yeah, they use Christmas movie music in it. They, it's the Christmas season, the whole thing through, but and maybe it's because all these, Die Hard and then of course Lethal Weapon take place in Los Angeles, and Christmas in Los Angeles is sunny. Let's go to the beach. If there was snow on the ground and Christmas trees everywhere and all that kind of stuff, maybe. But again, I don't see Lethal Weapon as Christmas being anywhere a part of the plot of that film, other than just the setting or backdrop that it happens to be going on in the background. But again, that's why it's open for discussion. Um, not necessarily. I think a lot of what I find out, what I do, there's a lot of conversation that gets to a level of pretentiousness sometimes about the art of storytelling and in comics and things like that, that I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and I'd say that 90%, if you're good at what you do, right, 90% of what you do storytelling wise in comics, you do instinctively, because you know that something doesn't look right if you do it a different way. Okay. For example, you've got your Clint Eastwood guys lighting his cigar. In all intents and purposes, the guy's facing this way. Well, don't we want him facing this way? Well, but his eye, which you can't really see here, is looking back this way. And that draws our attention back this way, right? So, and look how I did the perspective here. It just naturally leads me right to here. Now, I didn't consciously think about, I just did it this way. And it felt comfortable and looked comfortable. And the reason it felt comfortable and looked comfortable is because it's right. Okay. Now, you could also argue that you could do your perspective this way and have it open up this way, which, you could make an argument for that as well. So the whole argument of leading your eye and action axis and these different things are at some point become arbitrary, because you can make an argument for a multitude of things. And what you have to take into account is that people know how to read a comic book. Okay, it's ingrained in our pop culture at this point. And so regardless of what you do, even if you do stuff incorrectly, people are still going to instinctively read the comic the correct way. So how much does leading your eye, how much does drawing attention to certain elements, how effective is that? I think it is effective, in terms of light and dark placement, focusing on, if you look at this panel, okay, so the sheriff's in shadow, all this is in shadow, and creates a framing device, which really puts our attention on, because we've seen the sheriff before and we're seeing him right here, but we want to see the miner, right? And that's kind of who's talking in this panel. So that kind of allows our eye not to wander over here, but makes it go right here, because all this is going to be black. Now, granted, if this was someone else doing this and didn't put that shadow in there and detailed all this up, you'd still have the word balloon here going down to the miner. So I'm going to read it anyway, right? So, and again, you have the old miner looking this way. Then you got the sheriff looking back down this way, and his cigar points you down this way. And, and then the miner is over here. So he's walking off panel, lead your eye off panel. I mean, these are all things that you can consciously do or subconsciously do because you've done it so long. And a lot of that, I mean, it would just seem unnatural for me to have the miner over here and the sheriff over here and have them going off this way, because we're reading this way. So I don't want the action going against the way I would naturally read, right? And so that's just a feel. What I focus on And I have done comics where I have, done leading eye. I thought out every single possible way to correctly tell the story in the most efficient way and the most correct way possible. And then there's comics I've done stuff and I've just kind of gone with, instinctively. And a lot of times there's not a huge difference in them, because you should be, if you know what you're doing, you should be instinctively doing that stuff, without, turning it into a math problem every time you lay a page out. And the other thing I've discovered is that without having any sort of time, I mean, I do have a time frame. There is a deadline on this, obviously, but not in the same way that if I was working for DC or Marvel. You can sit here and you can spend hours or days on a single layout, right? And there's still about 100 different ways I could lay this page out. And that's not to say that, 50 of them wouldn't be good, so having more time does not necessarily make, in terms of the layout or the storytelling, make it any better or any worse, because you still at some point have to make a decision and say, I'm going to go with this, right? Now, 2 weeks from now, I might look at this page and go, wow, maybe I should have done this or that. And I think you can always do that. So, you try to do the best you can. You try to take all these things into consideration when you're laying a page out. But ultimately, there's I could have done this straight on with a close-up of the sheriff's eye and had the cigar here and the flame going up here and his eye looking over there, and it would have been the same effect, right? But I wanted this to be more of an establishing shot of the sheriff, so we clearly knew it was him. Is it a rule of thumb to have something pointing to the next panel? Not necessarily, because you have the built-in knowledge of your audience has the built-in knowledge of how to read a comic book. So even if you don't do it correctly, they're probably going to read it correctly. I try to stay away from a mirror as much as possible. I have used a mirror, for expressions and things like that. I do occasionally do that, yes. Aaron Lepresti, who would you argue has the most effective storytelling in comics, excluding probably somebody like somebody like Frank Miller, I think, did a really, really good job. I didn't see his last thing he did for DC, that the new Dark Knight thing he did. But you look at his Daredevil stuff, and this is some very, very interesting things. But let me show you an example of something, if I may, since I'm just going crazy on a tangent here. Okay, look at this. Now, this is the great John Buscema. Okay, this is a page from the Marvel Super Spectacular, or what was it called? Marvel's Super Special or whatever. And it was weird. It was the Weird World story that it went over. It was 11 issues, 11, 12, and 13. It was magazine sized. It was a big event thing, 1978. And Buscema drew it. Rudy Nebres inked it. And Peter Ledger colored it. And this is not an overlay. He colored on the board with watercolors or dyes or whatever he may have used. Okay, but look at, this is John Buscema, right? This is the guy who wrote How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And look at this huge mistake he made, okay? You never stack panels on the left-hand side of the page, because it makes it confusing. Do I do here, here, and then back here? Or do I go here, here, and then over here? If you put the big image here, like I did with this, right? We automatically start on the left-hand side of the page, right? That's how we read. So we see this. And then we go over here, left to right. That's how we read. And then because we can't go any farther left or right, we're obviously not going to go back to him, then we go straight down, right? It's very clear how to read this page, all right? When you stack on the left-hand side instead of the right-hand side, it's very strange, okay? Because we want to do this, but in this case, he's asking us to do this, and then go down here. But look what happens here. We go here, and then this takes us right back up to here. But now how do I get all the way back down here? Okay, artistically speaking, it doesn't work, okay? But because I know how to read comic books, right, and most of us do, I'm going to go here. But you know what? Honestly, I'm still not 100% clear on if I'm going here, here, here. Okay. Actually, now that I'm looking, see, this is the confusing thing. He gets elbowed here, and then the fight starts. Okay. So I think what Buscema wants us to do is to go here, then here, because he's still eating. If you look up here in the panel, then he gets it, and then down here. That is just, that is wrong on so many levels. And yet John Buscema did that in a high profile book. Artistically, this is a fantastic page, but you can see the panel layout, how confusing that is. But, and this is, I'm showing this as an example of just that even, you know, the greats sometimes make a decision that probably isn't right. But I'm sure he felt it was. And he may have been able to argue that point, you know, if he cared enough to argue about it, which he probably didn't. But, you know, that's the whole point about storytelling, is we can overanalyze this stuff to death. But ultimately, we're relying on the reader to know where to go and how to figure out the story, regardless of what we do. Brohawk's in the house. He's, ooh, I love that page. Aaron, show it again. Which one are we talking about? This one? I'm going to assume that's what you're talking about. I got to get caught up with the. Absolutely not. I never ask for people's opinions because then you're just going to get, everybody's going to have a different opinion. And even I wouldn't even say, hey, Howard Chaykin, what do you think of this? Even though he might, knowing Howard, he'd probably go, well, this sucks. What are you doing? You should, you know. But then I could go ask somebody else. Maybe ask Art Adams, what do you think of this? And he might tell me something different. I could go ask Michael Golden, and he would tell me something different, right? So at some point, you're making it. You got to make a decision, and you know, go with it. You know, occasionally I will, if I think something, you know, if I lay a page out and I say, God, this is, I'm not sure, you know, maybe I'll show it to Shelley and say, can you follow what's going on here? Can you figure out, do you understand just basically in the physical sense what the spatial relationship is between the characters and what's going on? You know, I've done that before, but generally I don't do pages that are so confusing that that's a problem. I think when, if you kind of look at the old image style, where you had multiple panels and things floating and different things like that, it could get confusing because they were more after kind of a visceral dynamic than necessarily good storytelling. I'm not saying that in every case, but I'm just saying sometimes that happened. And I kind of got past that when I was working on Planet Hulk, and Greg Pak, who wrote it, went to film school at, you know, NYU, and of course I went to film school at USC, and so we sort of kind of took an approach to the storytelling. It was very cinematic, right? And so, and then I would go back and look at Neil Adams' stuff and say, you know, Neil did some funky panel layouts, but a lot of times Neil did really interesting things within the panel structure, okay, and didn't let the panel structure be the interesting thing on the page, but instead what was going on in the panel be the interesting thing in the page. So I kind of got back to, with Planet Hulk, I kind of got back to a more straightforward layout style, panel layout style, and quit trying to be so cute with my panel layouts and be more interested in the panel, the angles and the camera angles I chose within the panel to better tell the story. Let's see here. Yeah, my wife gets mad at me. She's like, you should be on Patreon doing this, not doing it on here for free. So glad you stayed out of the camera too. You know what I'm glad about? I'm glad that this Canon's still there. David says, do you have a general number of panels you like to keep it around? What is the maximum amount you're willing to do? You know, I got into kind of a contest with myself. When I was at CrossGen to see how many panels I could get on a page. And I think I did 11 once. I think it depends on, for me, it depends on what's going on in the page, right? If it's a big action scene, you don't want 10 panels, 9 panels on that page. If it's a team book and you're drawing, 27 to 30 characters on a page, the last thing you want is a ton of panels with a bunch of tiny little figures in it so that we never get to see anybody, right? So, I mean, generally I keep it anywhere. 4 always seems like, if you're doing storytelling, I'm not talking about like a fight scene with a big splash page or anything like that. But if you're just moving a story along, if you're just doing 4 panel pages, that's probably not enough to adequately progress the story over a single page. I find a lot of times when I'm writing dialogue pages like this or this, that I'll sometimes be in that 6 panel range because I like to do a lot of cutting back and forth between the characters. And then sometimes I'll go and look at it and say, well, some of this is unnecessary, and then I can, when I'm drawing it or laying it out, I'll realize that some of the stuff I've written is unnecessary. And then I will go back in and maybe make it a 6 panel page instead of a 7 panel page, or a 5 instead of a 6, something like that. It could be, or it may be that he had something going on in his mind that he thought worked. Yeah, that's true. The word balloons do become part of the art, and you can't. Art Taber is in the house, by the way. Thanks, Art, for joining us. But that's an excellent point, that you can use the word balloons and the placement of those word balloons to carry the reader. Because let's face it, you look at the page. I think someone said that the amount of time a person is reading a comic book and looking at a page, you're looking at that for like a minute max. Okay. And then you're on to the next page. So no one's sitting here and like, we're talking about this page, right? And just breaking it down and what's going on here and all this kind of stuff. And when you're reading it, you don't do that. You see the page visually, and then you start reading the word balloons, and your eye follows where those word balloons are. So word balloon placement is extremely important in helping get the reader to where you want them to go as well. Well, and this is a good point as well, in that one thing we learned at film school and always talked about was, and why you don't do a lot of, like in a comic book, you'll do a Dutch angle, which is basically, a crooked angle like you saw in the Batman TV show, right? Or you'd have a camera set up on the floor and tilt it and tilt your shot, and it makes it more inherently dynamic. In a comic book, you do that in a movie, and it just takes you right out of the movie, right? So you don't want to take your readers out of the story. And if you get too crazy, that can happen, right? And suddenly we're no longer worried about these characters. We're worried about, oh, wow, that was a really crooked shot here, and he was over here. And you're looking at the art and saying, oh, this art's really cool. But then when you do that, you're not reading the story. You're not engaged in the story. And so I think a better way to approach it is try to do really, really nice art. Say, for example, like Brian Boland did in Killing Joke, right? There's no really goofy layouts in that book at all. And a lot of times they're like 9-panel grids or 6-panel grids, very straightforward, but the art is just incredible, right? So you read the story, it doesn't take you out of the story at all, the layouts and the art, and then you can go back and look at the art and just go, wow, this is really incredible. But I think your first read through, you don't want people being confused or taking them out by getting too weird with your layouts. Wait a minute, did I miss his drum solo? Oh, Art, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. You hit 90,000, right? So you did the drum solo. That's right. David would say I'm ripping off Bass Reeves, and I would say I'm inspiring him to do Bass Reeves. Oh, Chaikin is a kick in the pants, man, and he really knows his stuff. But I might be just using him as an example of someone who would tell me something, and then maybe someone else would tell me something different. It's true. Well, again, Shelley didn't like Frank Miller's stuff on, Dark Knight and going forward. But again, that was part of the conversation. The argument we were having was that, or the discussion we were having was that people outside of comics that aren't really into comics, they respond to art that looks the way they think it should look, and stuff that goes off the rails, like Miller's stuff, they don't get, right? And so it's more of it's like coffee. It's an acquired taste. Let's see. I may have missed some comments. I'm sorry, but I got to move forward here and get drawn. Zaid Comics. Zaid, that's you, isn't it, Phil? I think that's Phil. If that is, I'm going to have Phil on my show Sunday to talk about his project and some other stuff. Actually, I want to talk to him about video games too. I just picked up the Romita Artisan Spider-Man book. Super affordable and worth buying to see the artwork in all its pure glory. Yeah, I pick up those oversized books for certain artists that I think might have something nuanced that you wouldn't pick up in the regular printing size, right? Like Dave Stevens, I got the Rocketeer book. I got the Silver Surfer book. Buscema Silver Surfer book. I got Wrightson's book that IDW did. People that are more bold, like Simonson or people like that, who I love. Don't get me wrong, I love, but I didn't get those because I felt like the stuff I needed to see storytelling wise and technique wise were very visible in the smaller stuff. So it's just a way of making sure I don't spend too much money on stuff I really can't afford. Carl jumps in here with some knowledge. He says, Aaron, I really need to get back to work. So do I. But one of my unwritten rules is that an odd number of panels, 3 to 5, say, naturally creates more interesting layouts, where an even number of panels, 4 or 6, can easily fall into a grid or uninspired layout. Your thoughts? Again, I probably addressed that when I was talking about the... I think it's more interesting. I've come to a point, let me put it that way, that I feel it's more interesting what's going on inside the panel than necessarily the page layout itself. But if you're doing boring stuff in the panel, then a 6-panel layout can make it even more boring. And I will say that I was going back, like I said, this is page 23 now, and I don't think I've repeated a single layout on the 23 pages, and I'm trying to keep from doing that for the entire book. So this is more of a traditional layout, but in my mind, what's going on here, what I'll be using the blacks, the shadows, and you've got these really interesting looking characters that to me sort of carries it. And there's always that discussion about, well, if I do this really high angle and it shows this and that, but then you don't really see the characters well, or so you're debating, this would be a really cool camera angle, but does it really show the information I needed to show in this panel? So you're always fighting with these different elements, trying to come up with a concept that tells your story, but is also interesting to look at. And sometimes that's difficult because even in a film where you have a moving, tracking shot or a boom shot where the camera is moving through space and you're picking up an element, let's say, this guy, let's say if I was doing this in a film and the first thing maybe I'd show is a shot of the sheriff in the background and this guy holding up a coin in the foreground, right? And then maybe pulling back, but all those in between frames, you have to sort of, they're there in motion in a film and happen in just a matter of seconds. Whereas, I would have to do that over a series of panels and then, would it be as clear if I didn't, you know what I mean? It's sort of, what am I trying to say here? It's like, in order to get that amount of movement and detail just in the shot and the layout, you're talking about multi-panel sequences where everything gets smaller. Then you're sort of wondering, well, do I have enough room for the dialogue? And so, so then I opt to maybe just show a close-up of this guy holding up the coin rather than getting too cute with the layout. But what I'm counting on is his interesting face, right? Which I'm going to ink here in just a minute. And to make the panel interesting to look at. So there's all these different elements you're constantly struggling with while you're trying to figure out the best way to tell the story. That's an interesting concept. And I was kind of that way too. You just sort of accepted it. And what you hear people say about that is, well, it's appropriate for the style of story or the book. We accepted it though, because everybody had respect for Miller, and then of course the story was so good, and everybody knew he was kind of doing his own thing, kind of like when Sienkiewicz got weirder and weirder and weirder, right? He didn't just dump it all on us at once, and so I think we're allowed to, or we see something like that, like Frank Miller, that change of style in Dark Knight. And if the story's really good and the art isn't counterintuitive to the story, we say, well, it works really good with that story, and then we accept it. And then moving forward, that becomes what he does, and then we just sort of get it, right? But there is that transition period where you have to sort of either accept it or reject it. Oh, the live stream drumming is tomorrow. Okay, all right. Well, I'm gonna have to make sure I tune in for that, because we all know Art was a rock and roll machine. Thank you, Demonized. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's do a little work. So basically, what I've done here is I've taken a light blue coal erase colored pencil. Okay, you can light blue. If it'll focus, it probably won't. Okay, so there's non-photo blue, but non-photo blue is too light and too waxy. In order to get a dark enough line you can actually see, you have to press so hard, and then you can't erase it at all. The coal erase actually erases pretty well. I don't erase it, of course, because when I scan it, you can just drop the blue out. That's a feature on Photoshop. You can just drop the blue out, and it'll all disappear anyway. Now, if I was really bold, I would go in here and just start inking over this blue line, because most of that is there. You know what? That's exactly what I'm going to do. Screw it. But in the case of this guy, who maybe I want to look a little bit more like Clint Eastwood, excuse me. This guy who I maybe want to look a little bit more like Clint Eastwood than he does right now, I might get a photo of Clint and go over some of this with my pencil. until I got, the look I maybe looked a little bit more like what I wanted to look like, and then I would go ahead and ink it. But this guy with his Gabby Hayes hat, I think there's enough of him there that I can just go ahead and ink it. And this is the only way you can really pencil and ink a book in a timely fashion is to sort of leave some of the drawing in the inking to the inking stage, right? Because if I did super tight pencils and then super tight inks over the top of this, I mean, you're talking about for 80 pages, penciled and inked, you're talking a page a day for pencils and a page a day for inks. So you're looking at, 80 pages, 160 work days, if that's maybe only 5 days a week. So, so 20 work days a month. Even if you work 6 days a week, you're looking at 24 pages a month to do basically 100. So you're looking at over 8 months just to pencil and ink it. And I certainly could have built that into this, but I didn't want to take that long on the book, because part of the thing with comics is, we want it to look great and as good as we can make it look. But we also, if it doesn't come out, then it doesn't, it doesn't really matter, does it? How great it is. Now, what I've been doing with this book is I'm not getting hung up on doing exact line work. I'm approaching it more like I would if I was doing a sketch or something, because it's a Western. I want it to feel, kind of like a gritty spaghetti Western, and I want the line work to reflect that. So as you can see, I built up, these different levels of thickness on my holding lines. But whereas what I used to do is take a brush and just, this would be a perfect line, and that would be a perfect line, and this would be a perfect line. And even though it would vary in width, it would just be this, it would become this almost feeling like a porcelain, statue. And you can really ink the life out of a drawing. And I really want energy in these things. So I'm doing all this stuff sort of as a, as a sketchy line, as opposed to this real slick, refined look, which I've been doing most of my career. Well, in fact, all of my career. So this is really a departure for me. And it was hard to do because I didn't want to do it. My instincts were not to do it this way. But I think it really serves the project. And like I said, I don't know that it's any faster than if I was inking it the other way, but it's more liberating. So I feel like, instead of spending a great deal of time drawing something perfectly and then going in and spending a great deal of time inking it perfectly, that's when it starts to feel like you're just, okay, I just drew this and now I'm tracing it, And so it's like, why am I drawing this twice? And that's where inking can get really laborious and boring. When you do it like this, you feel like, okay, I did the underdrawing. Now I'm going to draw over that with the ink. Okay. And so it feels fresh and keeps your, at least in my case, keeps my interest in what I'm doing, because I still feel like I'm drawing right now instead of just following the lines exactly. Because the structure is there. And again, you have to have enough confidence in yourself and what you're trying to accomplish to do this, because every line is not going to be perfect, right? But what you find out again, which I said earlier, the average reader spending a minute on this page, they're not dissecting, you know, every little line I put in for his hair, right? And they're looking at the overall feel of the page and or the panel. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to focus on, is that, rather than the perfection of each line that I put down. I've said this before, but I think it's a great quote, and this is a paraphrase, but I remember Gary Martin, who's a terrific inker, super slick, you know, incredible control. He was inking Steve Rude, and Rude was trying to get him to loosen up. And Rude told him, he said, according to Gary, so this is again a paraphrase, but he said, okay, so you get the perfect line, then what? You know? So basically what he was saying to him was, what's more important is the aesthetic of the art, not the technique of, you know, the line work. Or, I mean, obviously you want it to look professional, and but there's, you know, like, look at Klaus Janson. No one's going to say his inking doesn't look professional, but it's certainly a far cry from, you know, someone like John Beatty, right, in terms of technique and style. So even if you're doing looser inks, there's still a way, you know, there's still, you know, a way to do it professionally, and a way to where it doesn't look professional, where it looks sloppy and you know, in a lot of cases, this guy's not sure what they want their finished product to look like. I know exactly what I want this to look like, and so then I do things that make it look that way. And then even if my lines aren't all perfect, they're all doing what I want them to do and creating the look I want them to, the way I want them to look. And so therefore, they don't look amateurish, they look professional. If that makes any sense at all. This is a 0.3 micron, by the way, and I'm just going to do, see, I could fill this in with black, but I like the texture of the crosshatch. And again, I'm not doing, you know, super controlled crosshatching here. But what you find out is if you do enough of it, in different directions, you keep layering over the top of the lines underneath it, eventually you're going to create something that feels like a, you know, a pattern, and doesn't feel sloppy or muddy. But it requires a fair amount of patience to keep going over and over and over until you get its sort of look. I mean, this right here, this edge right there is too harsh. So I'm going to continue to crosshatch over the top so it has more of a natural feel to the gradation. And there's no, you know, how far do you go? How often, you know, how much cross-hatching do you do before it feels right? Well, I mean, that's up to you. You have to sort of, like we were talking about storytelling, there's a certain amount of intuitive nature to it, that you just kind of look at it and say, okay, that looks the way I want it to look, or that feels the way I want it to feel, kind of thing. And then if I feel that some of the holding lines aren't thick enough, maybe I'll go in and beef up a few spots here and there. And again, keeping this stuff rough around the edges, right? But again, that's not something you look at and focus on and say, oh, look at that bump there and that bump there, and what about that bump there? It's, you look at this when you're reading the comic, you'll look at that and just say, God, that feels really, this guy, really looks sort of, mangy and rough, and that's the way I want him to look. And so you're walking away feeling about the artwork what I want you to feel about it, or how I want you to perceive it, as opposed to worrying about, is every feathering line perfect on that lip? And that stuff I would do. I would focus on that stuff and lose sight of the overall, the big picture. So I've really had to sort of train myself not to do that. Yeah, it depends if you trust your editor or not. Let's see, I'm way behind here. If I show that, then I have to show the whole page, which I don't want to show because it's actually a page from sort of Esther's origin story. I posted a panel with a ton of cross hatching on the horse. My dog's going nuts again, sorry. Let me see, how can I do this without showing too much? I'll do this. That was one of Shelley's white claw cans, by the way, just saying. All right. I'll show this panel. Okay. That's the panel David was talking about. I showed the horse. I just cross-hatched the crap out of that. You can't probably see it all that great. So basically on this, I drew the horse, and then I just started cross-hatching like crazy and laying in the blacks and stuff, just sort of instinctively. Same with the Wraith clothing. I didn't draw any of those wrinkles in. I just did it with ink. But I just think it's really interesting looking where you don't have necessarily all these solid blacks, but sometimes they break open with cross hatching and stuff. And some of that stuff will close up in the printing process, but I still think it'll, even if it breaks up a little bit, it's still going to create that sort of rough it's still going to have that rough textured feel that I want, even if all the extra line work I put in there doesn't show completely in the finished product. See, even this coin he's holding, I'm tempted to get a circle template, but then I thought, well, you know, if it's kind of bumpy and rough, that's probably more what I want it to look like, because any coin that this prospector might have been carrying around is probably not pristine. I gotta tighten up these hands a little bit before I ink them. Finger might be a little too long for an old geezer like this. I'm gonna have to dig up some reference for, you know, coins from this period so that I have the right image on that coin. But I'm not going to do that right now. Somebody asked what Gary Martin was up to right now, and I haven't talked to Gary, boy, probably in a couple of years, but he was doing a lot of commissions, which were really interesting because he was like recreating stuff for people, and doing like different inking styles, like recreating a Wrightson cover, or you know, stuff that just totally is antithetical to what he normally does, and it was really pulling it off quite well. So he was really kind of like training himself to use different approaches, and I thought that was really cool. And he was doing those for a long time, but I don't know if he's working on anything other than that, or you know, where he's at, because I haven't, like I said, I haven't talked to him in a while. Just looking on Instagram, some pages Steve McNiven turned in, and they were just crazy detailed. They were very nice, though. Andy Brace is another guy that just does crazy ink, you know, detail line work on his stuff. And although I'm doing a lot of line work on these pages, it's not as precise as what those guys are doing, because again, that's not what I'm going for. It'll be interesting that after this project, again, I apologize for the dog barking, but every time there's a noise outside, he goes nuts. But I'm already thinking about, you know, is this something I could carry on to the next non-Wraith project? Obviously, if when I do the next Wraith of God story, I would do it the same way. But, you know, if I do a Garbage Man story and I do maybe a Kit Carter story or one of my other characters, it's like, you know, do I change my approach a little bit? Do I go back to, you know, being super slick? No. I want to get down to a smaller, I'm going to do some line work on his face, but I want to get to a smaller point. Says Bill says his dad shoot horses before. That's interesting. Exactly, it's my Gabby Hayes character. Yeah, it is because well, like I'm on page 23, right? So I was just penciling. Once I got the thing penciled, it goes over to the inker, right? So while I'm penciling pages, he's inking pages. And we're so in other words, while I'm inking this page, if someone else were inking it, I would be drawing page 24 right now instead of spending the time to ink page 23. So yes, it is. It's faster. Now some guys are really fast. Mike Perkins claims that he, you know, pencils and inks a page a day, and he does some pretty, detailed stuff. Um, so, and I'm getting pretty good at this. Where I have penciled and inked some of these pages in a day, but they're uh, it really comes down to how many characters are on a page. I mean, this is pretty easy because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that's it. When you end up like when I was drawing Justice League International, I had pages where I had 27, 30 characters on a single page, and that just takes time to draw all that. That's why most people don't want to do team books, um, because they're twice as much work. Planet Hulk was a lot of work because there was a lot of battle scenes with tons of, you know, um, armies and things like that, and monsters and things, and so you're drawing so many characters, and then also laying out a page where you're featuring the right characters at the right time, and they have to be included in the background because maybe multiple characters are talking. It's just it's much easier when you can deal with just a couple characters on a page, like this page that we talked about that David liked, and most people respond well to. It's a very simple page in terms of execution, right? I've got one full figure I'm drawing here, then I have a close up of this dude. This is probably this is probably the most complex panel on the page because I have perspective and I'm drawing some of the interior in there, even though a lot of it's in shadow. But you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I guess 8 if you count the horse figures on this page, and that's it. And very limited background because it's all at night in the dark of this guy's house because I wanted the scene to be sort of intimidating and creepy. So that's significantly easier page to draw time-wise. Because a lot of times it's all about how long it takes you to do a page is not necessarily how much. I mean, it is obviously how much time you put into it, but not in terms of quality. Okay, it comes down to just the practical reality of how long it takes to draw something, right? So if you're drawing, obviously, if you're drawing 30 things as opposed to 8 things, it's going to take you longer to draw 30 things. And that doesn't mean the page is, better or worse. It just means that there's more stuff on it. So me penciling anything a page in, say, 6 hours is not a indictment of, or I should say, a commentary on how much effort I'm putting into the page. It's really commentary on how much stuff is on that page that needs to be drawn, because we're going to assume that we all do as artists that we spend as much time as necessary to make something look as good as we can make it look. I mean, to me, that's a given. The variable is how much do I have to draw, right? Now, how much line work I put into this guy's beard, to me, is determined by how much, what color is his beard going to be? Is this guy, Gabby Hayes? Is this beard white, or is it, if it's white, then I don't know that I want to put a lot of lines in it, because then that's going to just might, it's going to make it more gray looking even when you color it, because there's so much line work in it. And I think sometimes we celebrate guys that draw every single line of hair, or put every brick into a wall. And to me, a lot of times that's just superfluous detail that is unnecessary. And if you're doing stuff that's unnecessary, then what are you doing it for? A lot of times for me, like putting every brick in a wall makes the wall look too, it's like too much attention is drawn to that wall, and there's no purpose for your attention to be looking at all the bricks in the wall, right? That's background noise, right? And so I prefer actually to indicate bricks here and there, and kind of, so you get kind of a texture of what the wall should be, but doesn't become a character in the panel that you're paying a great deal of attention to, unless there's some reason why you want it, to be that. And although I'm doing a lot of line work here, it's not necessarily for you to ogle at the cross hatching and the line work. It's to create a texture that helps kind of sell the environment, and that's kind of it's a different animal, I think, than, drawing every line and every brick. A little shadow indicate under his beard side. So yeah, so it kind of, what point do you say, okay, I've drawn enough lines on this guy's face? Almost has a bit of a John Severn quality to it, doesn't it? Now, if I wanted to get cute, I could draw some stuff in his beard, but again, that might be funny, but probably distracting from. And cue the dog. See, what I'm doing right here, doing very loosely, again, because it fits the style that I want this to have, rather than going in and making every line perfect and every crosshatch perfect. It's not my goal. I'll go ahead and beef up some of these holding lines on the hand, because I know that once I erase this to get rid of the pencil under there, although there's not a lot of pencil, it was all blue line, so I may not have to erase anything now that I think about it. But in reality, when I'm, using a pencil instead of just blue line, I'm going to have to go in and erase some of that pencil line, and that's going to dull some of this stuff. So that's going to dull some of this line work. So by going in and punching it up now, I'm sort of like saving myself from having to go in and do it later. Anyway, there we go. There's our old miner. One of the many major and mysterious characters in this Wraith of God story. All right, that's about an hour and a half worth of everybody's day. So let's address some questions here. Inkfinity Comics over in Great Britain. He interviewed my wife not too long ago. Beautiful drawings. How long does it take you to pencil a page and to ink it? Do you give yourself a deadline? Because a lot of campaigns have not delivered yet since their launch years ago. Well, I talked about that earlier in the sense that I've got it broken down and that I need to get 15 pages done this month. My goal was last month by the last day of November to have 22 pages done. That was yesterday. I accomplished that. So now I want to get 15 done this month because I figure with Christmas and my son getting married, there's going to be some days in there where I'm just not going to be able to work, right? So I thought realistically, if I can get 15 done, I'll be okay. Then January has to be a big month for me. I have to get 20 pages penciled and inked in January, which is going to be hard. It's not impossible, but it's going to be difficult. It's going to require a lot of hours, and if I can do that and hit that 20, that puts me at page 57 at the end of January. Then February is a shorter month, but if I can go back to say get 15 done in February, that puts me at 57, 67, 70, 72 or something. And so then I'm basically finishing up the book in March, getting it to the proofreader, getting the layout guy to put the book together for me for the printer, and then I'm getting it to the printer sometime in April. So that's hopefully how it will all go. But you guys, I'm bringing you along every step of the way. There's not going to be a point where it's been 3 weeks and you haven't heard from me and don't know where I'm at or what I'm doing. So and that's the best I can do, is keep you guys abreast of everything, and I'll let you know that I'm, continuing to move forward and that we're, on track to meet that deadline. And hopefully, if I miss it, it won't be by more than, a couple of weeks, because this is not going to be a case where this book is 2 or 3 months late. That's just not going to happen. Huge fan of your artwork, Aaron. Appreciate the live stream. Thank you very much. Give me a few pages to showcase these and promise not to sell them. Warren, of course, will be doing the lettering for the book, which I'm going to have to get him started. I'm going to have to get you started, Warren, on probably in January. Once I get about maybe half the book done and I make sure that the dialogue is finalized on that half of the book, I can get you going on it, because I don't want to drop, 80 pages in your lap and say, hey, I need this in a week, so. That's funny. No, I was going to, but I was going to have Matt Ryan ink this. It would have looked totally different though if Matt had inked it. It'd still look good, but it wouldn't look the way I was going for here. The only guy that would ink this the way that I'm, that would give us the feel that I really wanted, I think, would be somebody like Danny Mickey, who just too expensive and not available, but all the great comic book artists ink themselves. So I wanted to be in that group. Anyway, there you go, gents. You saw me working on it. This page will actually be done today sometime. I really believe it will. We'll see. I'll post it on social media, of course. Oh, I want to let everybody know also that, again, this card is available for purchase if you did not sign up early for the campaign. Otherwise, you'll be getting it free if you did. If you didn't and you wanted one of these, there is a secret perk. Now, how does that work? I sent out an update with the link to the perk so that everybody that's already backed the campaign would have that link. If you say go in today and back the campaign and want the card, let me know, and then I'll send you the link so you can get the card if you want it. But anyway, the link to Wraith of God, the campaign, is in the description of this video. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. Please like and subscribe. I need all the support I can get, and apparently liking and subscribing does help in that regard. So I would appreciate that. If you haven't done that already, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, where you get wonderful content like this absolutely free. And there you have it. So everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. It's always nice to have these conversations and a little back and forth about comic art and sometimes movies and some other things. The Professionals is tomorrow night on Billy Tucci's channel, I do believe. So you want to check that out, 5 o'clock Eastern time. And pardon me, that's not correct. 8 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Pacific. And that's pretty much it for today. So I'm going to get back to work on this. Actually, I'm going to go grab some lunch, get back to work on that, and then we'll see you guys soon. Peace, brothers.